If you want juicy and tender ribs like these, but you own a gas grill, then don't worry. I'm going to show you how to do it.
A big thanks to Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this episode.
Why is it that people think you can only make juicy and tender ribs on a charcoal grill or on a wood fire grill? Yeah, I don't know why that is, because the most important factors of creating delicious barbecued ribs is time and smoke. Of course, there's also the meat factor involved. I asked my local butcher Gert-Jan to cut out some baby back ribs, and look at these monsters. This guy is exaggerating. The amount of meat that is on these ribs is insane. So that means I won't be hungry tonight. That's a good thing, but it also means that we're in a good spot to make juicy and tender ribs. And the reason why baby back ribs are so juicy and tasty is because of the layer of fat that runs in between the meat. So we're in a good place with meat. If I'm gonna put these on any barbecue, you almost can't fail. And all I need to do to prepare these is take off the membrane. I'm gonna take a dinner knife and wiggle it in between the bones and the membrane, and then I can just lift it up. There we go. Flavor-wise, I'm gonna go a little bit crazy. I'm gonna be using the PITMASTERX Tweety seasoning. And normally you put this on salmon, on chicken, but you can also put this on pork. The nice thing about this seasoning is that it's super powerful. So that means these ribs are gonna get a load of flavor. And why is that so important? Well, because we got a thick piece of meat. And if you have a thick piece of meat, you're gonna need more seasoning to season the whole rack of ribs, taking into consideration that everything needs flavor. Another thing to take into consideration is that these thick ribs also have sides. So you want to season the sides as well, just to get that full coverage. Pops like it's gold, orange gold, and makes the ribs look really good. Look at these absolute beauties. And that's just from putting on a little bit of seasoning. Imagine what they look like once we get some smoke and some sauce on. While the ribs are soaking up all the flavor from the seasoning, I'm going to show you how to set up the Napoleon gas grill. Now, this barbecue has 4 burners, and that's going to give me the opportunity to create indirect heat. But because my ribs are so big, and they're going to take up all this space in the barbecue. And if there's one thing that is important when you're cooking ribs in a gas grill, it's indirect heat. You don't want to be really grilling these ribs. Therefore, I'm going to use this area. There's this one last burner on the side, which I'm going to switch on, create heat and smoke with, that's going to heat all of this barbecue and cook the rib. But before I have to do that, I need to add smoke wood. So I'm going to take out the grill grate and the heat deflectors that sits underneath. And I'm going to take a wood chip basket like this. Now, I've used this a lot, and there's actually still some wood chips in this basket. And that's a perfect example to show you what happens if you put this and burn it. This is now charcoal. The wood's been burned down. It's actually not getting enough oxygen to fully combust. That means you're going to end up with some charcoal, and you're going to get smoke for the ribs. I'm going to load this up with some fresh wood chips. And I'm going to start this cookout with some beech wood. These are smaller wood chips, so they're going to give me plenty of fuel to get that first initial smoke on, which is the most important. And this goes where the heat deflector used to be. Now the grill grate goes back in, and now the barbecue is ready to smoke. I'm going to fire up that burner, set it to the lowest position, preheat the grill, and let it develop a little bit of smoke. And it's this nice, light, thin smoke. Now I can put these ribs on the opposite side just like they are right now, but I'm going to add a layer of protection that's going to give me a higher chance of success. I'm going to make foil boats. I'm going to take a rack of ribs, and then I'm going to make a little boats around them. This is going to provide that extra layer of protection. We're not going to get too much heat from the bottom, and we're going to get loads and loads of smoke on top while we're capturing the juices of the ribs, which is going to help them steam and cook a little bit, making them more tasty than you've ever seen before. Of course, you gotta do both of these. The problem with the ribs is you never know who's gonna show up. The worst thing that if you're not prepared, that somebody else is starting to eat your ribs. So make sure you got some extra. You never know. These ribs are now good to go on the barbecue. We got plenty of smoke. Let's put them in. And these baby backs, they have a thick part of the rib and a thinner part of the rib. The thick part of the ribs always points towards the heat of the fire. Now I'm going to slowly let the barbecue come up to a temperature of 120 degrees Celsius, and that's perfect smoking temperatures. After a while, the wood chips are burned up, so I recommend replacing them every half hour to keep smoke going. There you go, wood chips replaced. We got more smoke on the way, so I'm just going to do this for 1.5 hours, so about 3 times, and then I'm going to check the core temperature of the ribs. The smoke is gone. We've been smoking for about 1.5 to almost 2 hours. I want to see what the core temperature, and they're at 70 degrees Celsius. This is the time that the meat stops taking on smoke. So all the smoking happens before this. And now all I need to do is to cook them, to bring the temperature up inside the ribs until 92 degrees Celsius. And to do that, I'm going to wrap them in aluminum foil. Now Napoleon has some rib sauce and some smoky barbecue sauce, which I haven't tried before, so I'm going to test that out. But you can use any barbecue sauce that you prefer. Just take the ribs, put them with the meat side down onto the sauce. And if there are any juices left, then I'd like to add them just like that. And then put them back on the barbecue. This time we're going to put them back meat side down. Smoky barbecue sauce. Meat side down, fold it up. And back on the grill, meat side down with indirect heat. Close the lid. If you want to speed things up a little bit, you can go faster. You can raise up the temperature in the barbecue a little bit more because they're in aluminum foil and they're steaming in their own juices. It's not going to make them less juicy. However, you do have to keep in mind that you want to cook the ribs for at least 3 hours in total cooking time, so all of the fat and the silver skin have time to break down and become juicy, tender, and tasty. I went over the temperature of 92 degrees Celsius core temperature and expecting these to fall off the bone tender. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I don't lose any of the juices. Roll up the sides of the aluminum foil. I'm going to take a look at these ribs. These look absolutely freaking amazing. I'm going to brush on a little bit more of that sauce. Oh, I wish you could smell this. You definitely would want to eat these ribs. Let me put these down on the board. I can pop the bone straight out. So that's a good sign. We got a clean bone, but it's not like it's falling apart. Rack's almost tearing up. But we got plenty of meat. Let's get a slice out of this. Pop it up. Once the ribs reach the core temperature of 92 degrees Celsius, they're ready. But before you eat them, you gotta let them rest for at least half an hour. They will become so much better with that half hour. It's definitely worth the wait. That is insane. I like flowing juices so much. Is that a juicy rack of ribs or what? Look at that. I can't stop myself anymore. I gotta have one of these ribs. Really, if you're smoking ribs on a gas grill, you're gonna have something freaking delicious. You might not have the smoke ring appearance, but you still got juicy, tender pork ribs.